AC EVO feels harder than the original Assetto Corsa, and this run is kind of a perfect example of why. At first, the Countach feels manageable. It's old, it's heavy, it moves around a bit, but it makes sense as long as I don't rush it. Then pressure starts building from the car behind me, I start braking later than I should, and little mistakes turn into bigger ones. That's when EVO starts feeling really unforgiving. Not always broken, but very quick to show when I'm asking too much. I get why people say AC EVO feels harder than Assetto Corsa. The cars can feel sharper, and sometimes the rear doesn't feel like it gives you as much warning as you'd expect. If you're used to the original AC, where a lot of us already know the rhythm, EVO can feel like it's speaking a slightly different language. But I don't think every sketchy moment means the physics are broken. Sometimes the car is just showing you that your input was rushed or too late for what the car could actually take. That's what happens in this run. The Countach doesn't suddenly become impossible to drive. I just start driving like I have more grip and more room than I actually do. And once that starts, the whole run slowly creeps away from me. The beginning of the run is the part that makes AC EVO interesting to me. The Countach isn't easy, but it isn't random either. If I brake cleanly and let the car settle, it gives me enough to work with. The car has weight, and you can feel that old school rear drive behavior, where you can't just throw it around just like a modern GT car. At the Nords, that matters a lot because the track never really gives you a long break. The road is moving around under you, and the next corner is always arriving sooner than you want. And if the car is even just a little unsettled, it carries that feeling into the next section. That's where EVO feels different from the original Assetto Corsa for me. In AC1, I'm comfortable enough with the way the cars move that I can lean into things a little earlier. In EVO, however, I feel like I need to wait for the car more. If I rush that part, it really shows. Toasty! And that's where the pressure from the car behind starts changing the way I drive. This is something I think sim racing captures in a really trippy way, because there's no real danger, but your brain still reacts to being chased. You see the car behind you getting closer, and even if you tell yourself to drive normally, you start adjusting without realizing it. You brake a little deeper and try to carry more speed instead of giving the car that extra half second it needs to settle. That's usually where the mistakes start. Not because the car suddenly got worse, but because I stopped driving the section in front of me and started driving in the mirror. That's a bad place to be in a car like this, especially at the Nords. The Countach already needs patience. Once I start trying to defend or pull away, I'm asking the car to clean up decisions it was never really ready for. Right here is the first real sign of it. I approached this descending corner too fast because I'm feeling the pressure behind me. I brake too late, the front gets loaded, and instead of the car turning the way I want, it starts pushing wide. In the moment, it's easy to think the car didn't rotate enough or the physics felt weird. But watching the replay back, I'm just late. Then it happens again, and that's when the car behind me gets past me safely. That overtake matters because after that, the run changes. Now I'm not just driving, I'm chasing. And that's where I start making worse decisions. Once I get overtaken, I should probably reset my rhythm. That's the smart thing to do. Let the gap open a little, get the braking back under control, and start driving the car properly again. But that's not what happens. I start trying to catch up, and this is where AC EVO starts feeling harder, because it doesn't really hide that kind of impatience. If I carry too much speed into a section, the car shows it. If I'm too close to the car ahead, my line starts depending on what they do instead of what the corner needs. That's the part that gets messy. I'm not fully thinking about the Countach anymore. I'm thinking about the gap and trying not to lose the car ahead. At the Nords, that's usually how one small mistake turns into 3 more. The sim doesn't have to be broken for that to happen. And when the car ahead slows more than I expect, I have to react quickly. It forces me to move inside and off the proper line, and once that happens, the whole corner is already compromised. That's one of those moments where the mistake starts before the mistake. I was close enough that I didn't leave myself room to read the section properly, and when the car ahead checked up, I had nowhere clean to go. That's not an AC EVO physics problem. That's just me putting myself in a bad spot and then asking the car to somehow make it clean. By the time I get to the off-camber corner, the car loses traction at the rear, and luckily I don't hit the wall, but you can tell the rhythm is gone. I'm not flowing with the car the way I was earlier. I'm reacting late, trying to recover, and the road isn't giving me much help. Off-camber corners already make the car feel less settled because the road is working against the grip that you want. So if I come in tense or impatient, the car doesn't need much of an excuse to move around. This is why I think AC EVO feels harder than the original Assetto Corsa. Not because every weird moment is broken physics. I'm sure EVO still has things that'll change. It's still being developed, and I understand why people argue about the tire model, force feedback, and how the cars behave near the limit. But in this run, a lot of what goes wrong is easy to trace back to me. Late braking, chasing too hard, following too close, letting one mistake change the next decision. And once that starts, the Countach doesn't really cover it up. That's the difference I feel with EVO. The margin feels smaller. The car doesn't always give me the same comfortable recovery window I'm used to in AC1. So when I drive messy, the whole thing feels harder very quickly. Maybe that's frustrating, but it also makes the sim interesting, because it forces me to actually look at what I did instead of blaming the car right away. And then the last mistake is basically the whole run catching up with me. I veer off course, the sun glare hits at the worst time, and I'm still trying to close the gap instead of just backing out of it. By the time I ask the Countach to turn, I'm carrying too much speed and the front just pushes straight into the wall. That's really the point of this run. In this case, I don't think the car was broken. I just stopped driving clean and the Countach made sure I knew it. I'll catch you on the next run. Peace.